Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. So it's been a few weeks since I released a video, and my apologies, I have been in the process of moving house. Should have moved on Friday just gone, but unfortunately that fell through, so finding myself with a little bit of free time now that I'm all packed and ready to go and just waiting for a moving date. So today we're going to be talking about the market specifically, and that is because the market has been in a lot of flux obviously since the patch or the industrial change pretty much came and messed up everything, or changed everything, I think is a preferable way. And obviously this is now slowly but surely settling down. Prices are becoming more in line with what you'd expect after the initial release. Now after obviously the price gouging has commenced, obviously everybody then has been building more supply. Demand equals equilibrium, and therefore prices are stabilizing quite nicely. Now obviously this has been a great period to be making a lot of ISK, and if you are in a position where obviously you had the ISK prior to be able to pour that into the market or to industry, then again there has been very good profits to make. Now I did say that very early on I did buy some core temperature regulators, and I have where are we? I have been producing BPCs of these. Now, I made a bit of a mistake here. I I researched them to ME10 and PE16. Now, as we know, ME10 is as good as it gets. I thought that would give me a bit of an edge, but obviously it takes longer to get there. So in hindsight, I probably should have trained them to a lot less an ME in order just to get them out on the market. Now these are still selling relatively well and at a very nice price, but let's have a look here. So I'm currently selling some at 19, which is almost the lowest, but this guy is ME9, but we will see how that doesn't always make a difference. Now it's an interesting thing in EVE that don't always assume that having a better product technically on the market is going to make much of a difference. So we can see here I have a 10 run ME10 TE16, which I'm selling for 25 million. The guy above me here is selling the same. His is 25 million and it's ME7. Now the difference between ME7 and ME10 per unit is around 500,000 ISK, which is quite substantial, but obviously nothing massive. But because we're selling them at the same price, you would assume anybody buying would have bought mine instead of the person's above me. So I listed mine on the 20th of May, and if we have a look at the contracts here, this guy, he listed his on the 20th and the 21st, so the day after I put mine up, this guy put his up, but he sold 1, 2, 3, 4 on the 21st. So just because yours is better ME, and again mine even says aside what ME it is, so yeah, it's sometimes perplexing that people just either don't care, don't read, or don't really take it into account. So with that in mind, I probably should have been selling these somewhat sooner than I did. I've made a decent amount of ISK so far, but again, not as much as I possibly could have done in the earlier days, because obviously these were selling much more when they were rarer, and now they can be cranked out relatively quickly. So yeah, that's an interesting thing there for you. So yeah, just because you have the better product doesn't always mean that yours is going to sell above somebody else's. So it's been a busy couple of weeks, obviously, with buying, selling. At the moment I am I'm also building, but I'm buying quite a few of the whatever. So I am buying these up at the moment, and that is because there is a decent margin between, and obviously I expect these to go up over time. Now I'm willing to hold on to them. I've got 38 here. Where are we? 38 plus 3 plus 1. So 42 so far. So I'm probably going to round that off to about 50 if I can, if they stay at a decent price. And that is because obviously these are limited. They are very good battleships, and they are cheaper than the current battleships. Let's just have a look at the Maelstrom. So yeah, almost half the price. So again, as they're limited, I do expect them to slowly rise over the coming months. And again, you know, I might not make a huge amount of this. I'll be happy with 20 million ISK per unit on these, just to obviously make a little bit of money back. The Drekivacs, which I were hoping were going to go up slowly but surely, this hasn't actually happened yet. And this is part and parcel of the video, really. I wanted to take a look at the market and the Triglavian ships specifically, because there's something really interesting going on with these, and that is the price, obviously, of the materials has dropped quite considerably. Where are we? Manufacturing. And obviously the price there has dropped considerably, as we can see. So I have been buying up some of this material because I do think it is incredibly cheap at the moment, and I'll be surprised if it doesn't rise. But on the side note there, can't really see it with the Drekivac. Let's have another look, another take. But the volume of sales has dropped off quite radically. Now, this is quite unexpected. I didn't really expect this a great deal, because the Drekivac is obviously quite a unique ship. It's a very good ship, and with its remote reps, etc., it's a very hardy ship. So it's got a lot of things going for it that obviously other battle cruisers don't. However, it is quite expensive when all said and done, but not that much more expensive than, let's have a look at the oops, that's not how you spell Brutix. That's not either. Brutix. Let's have a look at the Brutix Navy issue and see how much that's going for. So not a huge amount more than the faction battle cruisers. So yeah, I wasn't necessarily expecting such a drop off, and obviously the more that it drops off, the less are being sold, and that is keeping the price roughly where it is. And that is, yeah, I hadn't taken that into account. Now, obviously, I still expect the prices of these to go up, even if it's only 20 to 30 million. But obviously, with the drop off there is quite substantial. And if we take another look at Belashek, you can see here again the amount being sold has dropped off. We were looking at about 70 on average, and now we're down into the mid 30s. And again, obviously the check has gone up a decent amount, but nothing massive. And obviously that is then going to have an effect on the materials that go into building these. And yeah, it doesn't necessarily account for where it is now, but it could struggle to get back up to where it was. So initially, again, I'm still buying these on a speculative basis, but it's not as good as I initially thought. When I first started buying these, I was like, oh wow, well, you know, it's obviously going to bounce back up to where it was, probably around here. But obviously with less volume being sold now, there's less materials required, and that could drive, or is driving, the price of the minerals here to kind of stabilize where it is. Now, let's just have a look at the Kiki, because I don't think the Kiki has gone up in price. Yeah, and again, has dropped in volume as well, which, considering the price of the Kiki, isn't that much more than it was, and in the past it's obviously sold at much higher costs. So even back here, let's say that's about average. Come on, what was it? 172 units a day versus 100 units at the moment. So again, quite a substantial drop there, which is again surprising, because again, the Kikimora hasn't really increased that much in price. We're not, we're talking 20 million versus obviously the battle cruisers and the Leshek, which have almost, potentially doubled in price. So I can understand why less of them are being sold. But the Kikimora, again, bit like, that's a bit unusual. And so if we have a look at the 0 point condensate, again, same thing with this. It's obviously dropped off and it's kind of leveled. And you can see here the volume of the condensates is, it dropped a little bit below the line there, but nothing substantial. And again, that could just because less people are trading it. But again, it is quite low, so I would expect that to be being bought up in larger amounts at the moment. Obviously, with the reinforced carbon fibre, that is now getting down quite low. But we are seeing a spike in volume now, and again I have said that I expect this to be getting to around about 12 million units a day, and I expect this to slowly be going up and up and up. I did expect it to be going up faster, to be perfectly honest. This seems to be relatively slow. I thought we'd be probably about the 1 to 2 million units a day, and we haven't, in fact we haven't surpassed 1 million units yet. So again, there's a good amount of carbon fibre now on the market here, but whether the market can currently sustain a big jump is anyone's guess, or the capacity that people have got in order to be able to jump on that in a decent amount of time. So we have stabilised at this price, but I do see this price rising somewhat from where it is. I don't think it probably can go lower, but I do see it rising sooner or later, just due to the fact that it's going to take... A lot of people don't like going to low sec. It takes quite a long time to build this stuff. You don't get a great deal of it. If you're just using one character, it's quite time consuming. So a lot of scope or potential there for this to slowly rise back up if these kind of volumes are sustained, or whether it still does rise. The reason this isn't rising necessarily at the moment is because, again, we still have huge stockpiles of ships, which is going to take a long time to get through. But it's very interesting and definitely worth keeping an eye on this. So looking at the current mineral prices, titanium has or is kind of stable around 4.3. I still expect this to drop from where it is. Pyrite is going up slightly, quite a lot actually, really, considering it's 21. Let's have a quick check of that. Again, I still expect it to drop, but considering where it is, that is again quite high, and that's obviously holding prices for other ships quite high. Mexilon is going down slightly. Isogen is up 5%. Noxium 6.6, Sidron 3, and Megasite 4. So again, not a huge impact in regards to titanium prices on ships, because, well, again, you need 8 million titanium now for a battleship, but if it drops by another ISK, well, that's 8 million ISK, so not a huge amount of difference or saving to be made even by trit dropping that much more. It's the other minerals that are keeping the battleship prices relatively or high as they currently are. But I say that if we have a look at the actual cost to build, I find this quite fascinating. Oops, my spelling today is atrocious. Maelstrom. So let's have a look at the build cost for a Maelstrom quickly. Not taking job cost, actual installation into cost, just the actual build cost. And there's a reason for that, and that is going to pull up the old one. Thank you very much. Right, buy all. So we are currently looking at, just to literally pull all the stuff straight off from Jitter, we're looking at 361 million ISK. A far cry from what people said battleships would be going for. They were, screaming on the forums that, oh my god, we're going to be paying 700 million ISK for a T1 battleship. Oh, it's the end, the sky's falling. Well, numerous of us said that, well, that wasn't going to happen and prices would actually fall. Now, obviously that price is slightly above, but again, this is an inflated price, and this is what I find quite fascinating. So, if we have a quick look, we've got the 92 million there, and the life support, and obviously the core temperature, which contribute quite heavily to the overall cost. Pyrite is obviously quite a substantial amount in there as well. So if or when pyrite does eventually drop to more reasonable amounts, that cost could literally halve. So we could be looking at about 30 million difference there. So if we have a look at Eve Cookbook here, I wasn't necessarily sure how I got on with this website initially, but for doing the analysis here is pretty awesome. So I'm going to pick a low sec system just to so we've got decent costs in there and calculate this. Now this is obviously looking at the current build. And we can see here we've got 266 or 271 million ISK here to actually build it. And this is what I like about this site, is the fact that it breaks down the mineral cost here. So instead of looking or pulling the integrity units or the cores, it basically breaks it down to their mineral format, or at least some of the way, because it can obviously you need the carbon and the other bits and bobs in order to make the reinforced carbon, but it does break it down to carbon. And we can see that obviously the price of that has come down substantially. And that actually means that, so say, to build one from scratch all the way at the moment would cost you 271 million ISK, and obviously they're selling currently on Tranquility there, we saw at 361, so quite a markup. And I really like this site for being able to have a look at that, so it doesn't just pull off the current price. And the Drekivac here, which is why I expect it to get to around 3 million mark, because again, same thing, but breaks it down to the build components, not the finished components. And that again is going for 300 million ISK, not including the BPC there. So I still think these are selling low on Tranquility, and that pretty much backs up there what I'm saying. Now, that doesn't mean that the reinforced carbons can't drop below 14, but it's only making up 87 million ISK. So could it drop half? No, not really. Could it drop to 10 million ISK? 10, so we'd be looking at 60 million ISK instead of 87. So not a huge difference there. But again, I'm expecting or hoping that 14 million ISK is pretty much the number that we're going to stick at. And so, you know, I use this for quite a lot of looking at what prices should be after you've taken everybody's markup out of it, because obviously the integrity units and that are selling at quite a markup at the moment, whereas this site obviously doesn't take that markup into account. It takes the raw materials into account, and therefore you can see what it would cost if you were to buy it and to produce it yourself. Now obviously with people making a markup, these costs are going to be higher, but this does give you the base, what it would cost to actually build it from scratch. And again, I quite like that. It makes it nice and easy to see straight off the bat. And there we go, my 10-minute video has now turned into an 18-minute video. So again, I'll wrap it up there. We're going to be doing a few more of these over the next couple of days, just looking, highlighting and just poking and prodding where I'm doing, where I'm going and what I'm looking at. And again, sometimes how I look at trying to analyse things and where I get these numbers from. Because obviously, you know, initially I was like, well, the Drekivac, you know, 350 was where I was expecting. We're below there. Then obviously in a later video I said about the 300 mark, and looking at the Eve Cookbook there is pretty much where I'm getting that figure from. It's why I expect it to obviously be around or a minimum of 300 million ISK, unless obviously materials etc drop substantially from where they are, which I don't see it happening. So yeah, I'll be going into a little bit more of where I'm pulling some of these figures off or from, and yeah, how I get to these overall figures in the end. So I hope you enjoyed that. Drop us a like. If you haven't subscribed, then please think about it, and if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, or if you think I've done anything wrong or something I'm not seeing, by all means point it out. Again, I'm always grateful for a bit of feedback. Eve is such a complex game that, again, even after making 114 videos and doing this generally day in, day out, there's still things I don't know or don't notice. So if you know any of it, put it down in the comments, let me know, or drop into the in-game channel and just say hi. And with that, thanks for your time. Talk to you later.